The frozen whispers. The wind screamed across the frozen land like a beast in pain. Thick snow fell from the gray sky, covering everything. The ice storm had been raging for hours. It was hard to see, hard to breathe, and even harder to survive. Jack's boots crunched through the deep snow. He was alone, wrapped in a heavy coat with frost stuck to his beard and eyebrows. He was a human explorer, part of a survey team sent to scan the planet Thalos 9. But now, he was separated from his crew. His radio was dead. His map was useless in the storm. He kept walking, hoping to find shelter before the cold killed him. Then, he heard it. A sound, so faint it almost disappeared in the wind. He stopped. He listened. Again, it came. A soft, broken cry, like a child. Crying. Jack turned his head. "What the hell?" he whispered. "Out here?" He followed the sound, moving carefully through the snow. His breath came out in clouds. His fingers were numb inside his gloves. The cry came again, closer now. And then he saw it, a small shape, half buried in the snow, leaning against a broken rock. It was a child, but not human. The skin was pale blue. The eyes were big and dark, full of fear. Tiny hands were shaking. The child's thin clothes were torn and frozen stiff. Jack's heart stopped. A kid? An alien kid? The little one looked up at him, blinking through snowflakes. A single tear rolled down her cheek and froze before it reached her chin. She was going to die. Without thinking, Jack ran to her. He took off his thermal blanket and wrapped it around the child. She didn't move, didn't speak, just kept crying. "It's okay," Jack said softly. "I've got you now, you're safe." But he knew it wasn't true. Nothing was safe out here. He picked her up gently. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. Her breathing was weak. Her skin was ice cold. Jack looked around. There was no shelter, no cave, no ship, just white snow in every direction. He pulled out his scanner. It barely worked in the storm, but it pinged. There was something nearby, maybe a wreck, maybe a broken ship. He didn't care. It was the only hope. "Hold on," he whispered to the child. "I won't let you freeze." He pushed forward, step by step, holding the little alien close. The storm roared louder. Snow slapped his face. His legs felt heavy. But he kept going. After what felt like hours, he saw it. A dark shape in the snow, twisted metal, a crashed shuttle. The door was half open. Jack kicked the snow away and crawled inside. It was cold, but not as cold as outside. The walls blocked the wind. He laid the child down on a padded seat. Her eyes were closed now. She was still breathing, but just barely. Jack turned on a small heater from his emergency kit. Warm air filled the small space. Slowly, the child's shaking began to stop. Jack sat down beside her. He watched her face. "Who are you, little one?" he said softly. "What happened to you?" No answer. He looked around the crashed shuttle. It was alien, no doubt. Controls he didn't recognize. Symbols on the walls. Everything frozen and quiet. No one else was here. Just the girl. Just him. He leaned back and closed his eyes for a second. But then, he heard it again. A sound. Not crying this time. Footsteps. In the snow. Outside, Jack's eyes opened wide. Someone, or something, was out there. He stood up quietly, moved to the door, looked out through the crack. Nothing. Only snow. Only wind. But he knew what he heard. Jack closed the door gently and turned off the heater's light. He didn't know if the thing outside was friend or enemy. He didn't want to take a chance. He sat beside the alien child again. She stirred, opened her eyes just a little, and looked at him. Tears filled her eyes again. But this time, they didn't freeze. Because there was warmth now, and hope, even in the storm. The child who wouldn't speak. The alien child lay still on the padded seat of the crashed shuttle. Jack sat beside her, watching the frost melt slowly from her face. His emergency heater hummed quietly. The cold inside the shuttle was still biting, but at least it wasn't deadly anymore. She hadn't said a word, not one sound since he brought her in. Jack tried again. "Can you hear me?" No answer. "Do you understand me?" The girl blinked once. Her dark eyes stared at him, but full of fear. And something else. Like she was trying to remember something, or someone. Jack gave a small smile. "It's okay. I don't want to hurt you." She flinched when he moved closer, not much, just a little, but enough to tell him she didn't trust him yet. He took out a food bar from his pack and opened it. He broke off a piece and gently offered it to her. She looked at it, then at him, then back at the food. Her tiny hands reached out slowly. Carefully, she took the food and ate it in small, quick bites. Jack smiled again. "Good. That's good." But still, she didn't speak. Jack looked around the alien shuttle. There were signs of damage, burn marks, broken wires, a cracked control panel. It looked like the ship had crashed hard. But there was no blood, no bodies, just her, alone. He frowned. "Where are your people, kid? What happened to you?" She didn't answer. She just pulled the blanket tighter and turned her head away. Jack stood up and walked to the control console. He brushed off some snow and touched the screen. Surprisingly, it flickered on. Strange symbols appeared, alien language. But he saw a blinking red icon, a recorded log. He tapped it. A voice came through the speakers. Female. Calm, but tired, speaking in a strange language he couldn't understand. But in the background he heard the same child crying. It was her voice. The log ended. Another started, this one full of panic, heavy breathing, screams, something slamming into metal. Then static, then silence. Jack turned off the screen. "What happened to you?" he whispered again. "And why were you left alone?" Suddenly he heard a small noise behind him. He turned. The alien girl was pointing toward the door. She wasn't shaking anymore. She looked alert, worried. Jack moved to the door and opened it a crack. Snow blew in, but something else too. Footprints. Fresh. Ones big, deep, not his. Something had come close to the shuttle and walked away. Jack's heart raced. He looked around but saw nothing in the storm. "Something's out there," he said softly. The child nodded once. Just once. Then pulled the blanket over her face. That was the first clear sign she understood him. Jack backed away from the door and locked it shut. Then he sat down again. A long silence filled the shuttle. Then, finally, a voice. Soft. Small. Broken. "Luma." Jack looked at the girl. Her lips had moved. "What did you say?" She looked at him. Her voice cracked again. "My name is Luma." Jack smiled gently. "Luma. That's a beautiful name." The child looked down. A single tear ran down her cheek. But this time, it was warm. And Jack knew something deep in his chest. He wasn't just keeping her alive. He was now part of something bigger, something dangerous, something mysterious. The child had a secret, and whatever it was coming closer. Outside, the storm howled louder, but inside the broken ship, something had begun to heal. Shadows in the snow. The wind outside had calmed a little, but the danger hadn't passed. Inside the broken shuttle, Jack sat quietly. The little alien girl, Luma, was asleep now. Her breathing was slow but steady, wrapped in his thermal blanket. Her small form looked peaceful, but Jack's mind was racing. That name she spoke, Luma, the only word she had said, and those fresh footprints outside. They were not his, and they were not hers. Someone, or something, was near. He stood up, picked up his pulse pistol and opened the door just a little. Snow blew in. Cold touched his face like icy fingers. He looked down. The footprints were still there. But now, they were joined by a second set. Larger, wider. Jack's eyes narrowed. There were two of them. The tracks led away from the ship, and into the white fog of the storm. He stepped outside. The snow crunched under his boots. He moved slow and careful, eyes scanning the ice-covered landscape. Every shadow could be a threat. He followed the prints for a while. Then, he stopped. There, ahead in the snow, a dark shape. Still, crouching, watching. It had 4 arms, long and thin. A helmet covered its face. Metal armor wrapped around its body like black bones. It didn't move. Neither did Jack. Then it turned its head and vanished behind a snow ridge. Gone. Jack didn't follow. He turned back fast and ran to the shuttle. When he reached the door, he paused. His heart dropped. The door was open. He had locked it, hadn't he? He pulled his pistol and rushed inside. Luma was gone. Luma? He searched the small cabin. Nothing. No blood. No signs of struggle. Just her blanket on the floor. Then, he heard it. A soft humming sound. Not human. Not mechanical. Almost alive. He followed the sound to the back of the ship. A panel had been pulled open. Behind it, hidden wires and glowing alien tech. And in the middle of it, Luma sat cross-legged, eyes closed, hands glowing faint blue. Jack lowered his weapon. Luma, she opened her eyes slowly. I called them, she whispered. Jack felt a chill colder than the storm. Called who? She looked at him, sadness deep in her dark eyes. They're coming. They want me back. Jack knelt beside her. Who wants you back? She looked down. My father? He's not like you. Not kind. He sent them. Jack's voice went cold. Sent who? Hunters. Suddenly the ship shook. Boom. The floor rumbled under Jack's knees. Boom. Closer now. The shadows outside were moving again. Not one. Not two. Many. He grabbed Luma's hand. We have to leave. Now. But there's no safe place, she whispered. Jack looked into her eyes. There is now. With me. He pulled her close, wrapped her in the blanket again, and grabbed his pack. The storm outside was waiting, but so were the shadows. The crashed shipjack ran through the snow with Luma in his arms. The sky was dark now, and the wind screamed again. Ice bit his face, but he didn't stop. Behind them, the shadows moved. Hunters. He didn't know how many, but he knew they were close. Hold on, Luma, he said through clenched teeth. I know a place, she whispered. We were going there before the crash. Jack looked at her. Where? She raised a shaky hand and pointed to the east. There, under the old mountain. My mother said it was safe. Jack didn't ask more. He turned and headed toward, the mountain. Hours passed. Snow fell harder, and then he saw it. Something massive, buried in ice. A ship. Not the small shuttle he found her in. This was much bigger. Almost like a fortress. It had fallen long ago. Its nose was deep in the snow. Parts of it were cracked open. Burn marks, impact scars. But even now it looked strong. He approached the ship carefully. Metal groaned under the wind. A frozen alien flag hung from one side, blue and silver. Symbols he couldn't read. Luma looked up at the ship. This was my family's ship. She said softly. Before the hunters came. Jack looked around. We're not safe yet. He found an old ramp half covered in snow. With effort, he kicked it loose and walked inside. Darkness swallowed them. He turned on his flashlight. Inside, the air was thick and cold. Everything was frozen. Chairs, controls, walls, all covered in ice. But no bodies, no blood, only silence. This place, Luma whispered. It remembers me. Jack blinked. What do you mean? She didn't answer. Instead, She walked slowly to a large control panel. She touched it gently. The screen lit up. Jack stepped back. How did you— This ship was made for my kind, she said. It listens to our voice. It feels our touch. The ship hummed softly. Lights flickered on. A hallway lit up ahead. And then, a voice. Female. Gentle. Ancient. Luma. Child of our blood. You are not alone. Luma gasped. Mother? The voice continued. You have returned, but danger follows. Defense systems are offline. Power is low. Jack moved to the panel. Can we hide here? The voice paused. 1 hour. After that, the ship will shut down. Luma's eyes filled with tears. She's not alive, just memory. Jack looked at her. But maybe her memory can save us. Suddenly, a loud crash outside. Then another. The hunters had arrived. Jack ran to the door and sealed it. Luma sat on the floor. They'll break through. Jack held his weapon. Then we hold them off. Together. Luma looked at the walls. There's something here. Something they fear. Jack raised a brow. What is it? She stood slowly, walked to a small, locked door and pressed her hand on it. It opened with a hiss. Inside, a glowing orb floating. Alive. It pulsed with light. This is a memory core, Luma whispered. It holds our past, our power. Jack stared. Can it help us? She nodded slowly. If I connect to it, I might wake the ship. But what will it do to you? She paused, then said softly, It doesn't matter. If it saves us. Outside, a deep rumble. The hunters were tearing through the hull. Jack made his choice. Do it, I'll protect you. Luma placed her hands on the orb. Light exploded. The ship roared back to life. Jack turned to face the shadows, ready to fight. The signal light filled the old alien ship. It poured from the walls, the ceiling, the floor, like the ship itself had woken from a long sleep. Jack shielded his eyes. Luma, what's happening? The little alien girl stood inside the glowing chamber. Her hands rested on the floating orb. Energy danced around her fingers like lightning. Her eyes were closed. Her lips moved. But she wasn't speaking English. She was speaking to the ship. Ancient words, words the walls remembered. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed across the ship, not human, not machine, a memory, becoming something more. Power core active, primary systems restoring, emergency beacon unlocked. Jack's heart skipped. Beacon? He said aloud. Is it calling for help? The voice answered. Long-range signal preparing to launch. Jack looked at Luma. She opened her eyes slowly. Her voice was calm. Too calm. This signal, it doesn't only call for help, it calls for judgment. Jack took a step forward. What do you mean? She looked at him, eyes glowing faint blue. There are others out there. Older than the hunters, stronger. They hid for years, waiting for someone to call. Jack frowned. Are they friends? She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, They are not kind. Suddenly, a piercing alarm echoed through the ship. Breach detected, outer hull compromised. Jack turned. He ran to the main door. On the screen, a live feed showed shadows moving through the snow. 5 of them. No faces, only armor and red eyes. The hunters had found them. Luma shut the signal down. She shook her head. It's too late. It's gone. Far above the planet, something blinked to life, a massive satellite forgotten in orbit. It caught the signal, translated it, then broadcasted it across the stars. Somewhere, far away, something woke up. Back on the ship, the hunters slammed against the outer wall. Jack raised his weapon. How long until they break in? Luma's voice shook. Minutes, maybe less. Jack looked at the control panel. What else can this ship do? She pointed. The weapon systems, they were locked. Jack's eyes moved to the screen. Weapon controls now blinked green. Unlocked. Can we fire? Luma closed her eyes. Yes, but not without cost. Jack didn't wait. He activated the cannon. Outside, the ice split apart as a long-forgotten turret rose from the snow. It glowed, hummed, and then, boom. The first hunter disappeared in a flash of light. The others scattered, screeching. Inside the ship, the lights flickered. Sparks flew. Luma cried out. The orb pulsed red. Jack ran to her. What's wrong? It's too strong. It's taking my life, my memory, to keep firing. He looked into her eyes. No, stop it. We'll run. We'll find another way. But, she shook her head. This is the only way to keep you safe. Jack stared at her. A small, brave child, sacrificing everything. I won't let you die, he said. Not like this. He pulled her away from the orb. The cannon shut down. Outside, the hunters regrouped, but kept their distance. Inside, Luma fell into his arms, weak and shaking. You stopped the signal, Jack whispered. No, she said, and pointed to the sky. It hurt us. Ice hunters' snow drifted in slow silence outside the crashed ship. But inside, silence was a lie. Jack checked the power core. It was failing. The cannon had used too much energy. And Luma, she was curled up, pale and weak, her glow fading. She gave too much, he whispered. Too fast. Suddenly, a cold wind howled through a crack in the hull. Then, a sharp clang, then another and another. Boom, the wall shook. Jack grabbed his weapon. Luma, he whispered. They're here. She opened her eyes weakly. The ice hunters. Jack's voice was low. Tell me what they are. She swallowed, her voice barely a breath. They don't speak. They don't sleep. They only obey. He moved to the door. Through a small crack, he saw them. 5 figures armored in bone-white exosuits, their eyes glowing red behind glass, long claws on their arms. One carried a spear that pulsed with blue fire. They didn't run. They stalked. One knelt down and touched the snow. It whispered something back. Jack didn't know how, but the thing stood and looked directly at him. They can feel heat, Luma whispered. Your heat. Jack turned off his flashlight. Then we give them nothing. But it was too late. The hunters moved, fast. One slammed into the wall, cracking it open like paper. Jack fired. The beam hit the thing, but it didn't fall. It just grunted and kept coming. They don't die easy, Luma said. Jack grabbed her hand. Then we run. He kicked open the side hatch and helped Luma outside. The cold hit them instantly, sharp as knives. He carried her through the snow, heart racing. Behind him, the hunters followed, silent, relentless, hungry. Suddenly, they reached a canyon, narrow and deep. A thin bridge of ice stretched across it. Jack looked at it, then looked at Luma. It's risky, she nodded weakly. But it's the only way. Jack stepped onto the bridge. Ice cracked beneath him. He moved slow. So did the hunters. Halfway, across, a sound, crack. The bridge split. Jack jumped, barely made it. Behind him, the ice collapsed, falling into the abyss. 2 of the hunters fell with it, gone. But 3 remained, and they were angrier now. Jack turned and ran with Luma in his arms. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to protect her. Suddenly, he saw lights in the snow. A beacon. Faint. Flickering. Old human tech. A forgotten research outpost. He kicked the door open and rushed inside. Dust. Frozen machines. Empty rooms. He laid Luma down, found a med kit, activated the shield door, then collapsed beside her. Are we safe? She asked. Jack looked at the door. They'll come. She looked up at him, her voice like frost. Then I'll stop them. Jack shook his head. No more sacrifices. But she sat up slowly, eyes glowing again. I remember something now. A code. A last defense. She walked to a console, fingers trembling. Typed something in. A countdown began. "What are you doing?" Jack asked. "If they breach the door, the outpost will freeze them, lock them in ice." Jack stood. "What about us?" She looked at him. "If we don't leave in 5 minutes, we freeze too." Outside, the snow stopped falling, because the hunters had arrived, and they were at the door. Warmth in the storm. The outpost countdown echoed through the frozen hall. 4 minutes until lockdown. Temperature drop initiated. Jack stood by the console, his breath turning to mist. Luma sat on the floor beside him, her arms wrapped around herself. Her glow was faint now, but her spirit still bright. Outside, the ice hunters slammed against the metal door again and again. Boom, boom! Jack watched the red warning light flash. "They're not stopping," he said. Luma looked up. "They won't, until I'm gone." Jack knelt in front of her. "You don't have to die to stop them." She gave a small, sad smile. "This is the last place my mother brought me. She told me, if I was ever alone, the outpost would protect me." Jack touched her shoulder. "You're not alone anymore." A soft pause. Her eyes filled. Then, crack, the metal door dented inward. "They're inside the airlock," Jack said. Luma reached into her small satchel. Jack hadn't seen her take anything from the ship, but now, she held out a tiny cube, glowing soft, blue. "This is what they really want," she whispered. Jack frowned. "What is it?" "A memory seed," she said. "It carries my people's past, our voices, our truth." She placed it in Jack's hand. "You have to keep it safe, even if I don't make it." Jack closed his hand around it, firm. "I'm not leaving without you." 2 minutes remaining. Another slam. The airlock creaked. "They're almost through," Jack said. Luma stood slowly. "I can't stop them all, but I can slow them down." She walked to the center of the room. The floor panel lit up, responding to her presence. "No." Jack stepped forward, but she looked back and smiled. "My mother said, true warmth doesn't come from fire, it comes from choice." She knelt. The room began to hum. Energy flowed through the walls. The defense field charged. Outside, the hunters howled. Jack ran to her. "Let me help." Luma's hand reached for his, but not to pull him in, to push him back. "I want to see the stars again, but I want you to carry them." The final slam broke the door open. The ice hunters rushed in, but the room exploded in light. The emergency freeze activated. A storm of ice and energy poured from the walls, trapping the hunters. Mid-step. One screamed, another lunged. But they all froze in place. Statues. Silent. Luma fell to her knees. Jack ran to her. "Luma. Luma, stay with me." She looked up, weak, but smiling. "You kept your promise." Her hand touched his cheek. "You brought warmth, even in the storm." And then, she went still. Days later, a rescue team found the outpost. They found Jack, and beside him, wrapped in his jacket, the small alien girl, her body cold, but whole. In his hand, the memory cube. Jack gave it to the Human Alliance, and he told them everything about Luma, about the hunters, about the sacrifice. Months later, a statue stood in the human capital, a child, hand held up to the stars. Beneath it, a message. She came from ice, but gave fire, and reminded us that even the coldest storm can be melted by kindness.